Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How are we getting on? Welcome to a brand new camp build. And today, by popular demand, we are working with the Pittsburgh Palace Prefab that is unlocked at level 50 on Season 10, the current scoreboard. So let's jump into this one. Okay, and so yeah, this is unlocked at rank 50 on Season 10 scoreboard, the current scoreboard. Now this prefab is frankly pretty massive, so there's not a whole lot of building in this one, so we're just going to focus on a tour instead of the actual build, but we'll have a decent look around it. So first up, let's have a look at where we are on the map. There we go, there's the Pittsburgh Palace, right on this train track here, down near Mount Blair train yard. We're down in the ash heap. A couple of locations nearby there. This is a good spot. You can actually build surprisingly close to the train yard here and work a few of the sort of features that are in place already into your build, and I do like this. Built down here a couple of times before. So here we go, here is my finished build. You can probably tell from most of this, apart from the prefab itself, there are a few fences around, and other than that, it's pretty much decoration, so nothing too complicated here. This bus here on the right was already in place, obviously. It's unfortunately also a spawn point for enemies, so putting that fence across the front there, the encampment's fence, was probably not the wisest move I've ever made. I might end up taking that off, and anything that spawns in there can get out and get shot by my turret. That's probably what I'm thinking. But it can be closed off if you so desire. Not necessarily the wisest, as I say. Plenty of decoration around the outside. You can really get a look here at just how huge this prefab is. If you've got this in a camp, you kind of don't need anything else, because you can fit everything you could really need, short of the farm, into the one prefab. So I've kept it fairly simple. I've just sort of fenced off this outer area at the front, used the bus there as part of the wall as well. Loads of bits of decoration around out here, just add splashes of colour and little bits of interest to the outer part of the walls. We'll head through the Encampment Gate. I'm abjectly convinced it looks like something out of Borderlands. But there we go, so we've got a little kind of open area outside the prefab here, just sort of leaning up against the bus. A couple of guard posts there with turrets on. Normally I don't put turrets in builds, but in this case this spot does get attacked a lot, no matter what you build here, so it's worth having them, or at least being prepared to defend it a lot. So loads and loads of bits of decoration out here, and little sort of groups of stuff around, and lots of bits of colour to it, because it's quite a colourful prefab in a way, and I kind of lent into that a bit. But a little gate down here at the back so that we can get to the water purifier, make use of the pond here. Those two encampment fences on the right are just kind of to keep things from coming around through the water and into the gate area, which kind of works, but they will sometimes cross the pond. So tons of decoration on the prefab here. The biggest thing I've done is add sort of loads of little bits and pieces so you don't tend to fall off it, because it's quite open-sided, this one, particularly on the upper level, so sort of enclosed it a bit more, as well as adding tons and tons of decoration bits and pieces. Got the power armor station just down at the bottom here, because it doesn't really fit anywhere else, and there's a decent bit of space out here, so it works quite well down here. So the first room here on the left. Gone with the jailhouse gate there, just so you can see through it, because this is where my vendors are, and I thought, well, we'll tuck them in here. As I say, there's loads of space in this prefab, so you can really fit everything in without having to use any other sort of building structures, really, which is kind of what I've done here. But just made this into a nice little vendor space, a couple of vendors in there, loads of bits and pieces on the wall. Got all the quest posters on the wall in here as well, so if anybody wants to grab those while they're here, they can do. Little bits of decoration as well. And then the off chance anybody has to wait and queue up for the vendors, then they can just sit on the sofa there as well. And there's a stash box in case anybody wants to drop anything they buy straight into the stash from there as well. With these kind of things, particularly with the shipping containers, I like to put a lot of stuff on the walls. And a lot of the prefabs like that as well, I tend to do that. And it kind of breaks up the surface, otherwise it's sort of overbearing in a way. Making it really busy works, so that's what I've gone with here. So this is our living space down here. For this little display, I've thought about doing this for a while, but finally got round to it. We've got a couple of weapons racks at the back of a display case here. To do that, all I did was put a display case in, hit it with a flamethrower, and then just put the weapons racks on the wall behind it. This is the glass-backed one, so when I repaired it, they were basically inside. And it worked quite nicely. Dead simple to do, which is cool. So we've got a little seating area, dining area down here, and cooking station at the end as well. I went with Yasmin's cooking stove here, so I've got somewhere to cook that doesn't have effectively chimneys or fire or something like that inside the closed shipping container, because obviously there's no smoke issue really in the game, but it looks like there should be, so that's what we went with. We've got the bedroom down here at the smaller end, so it sort of knows our way down here. Put this screen up there just to kind of divide it off for a little bedroom privacy. I'm quite happy with how this has come out. Nice little variation of what I often do. There's a couple of posters here that are clipping into the wall, which is a bit unfortunate. The weird thing about this was that when I actually put them on the wall, they weren't clipping at all. I ended up logging out and then logging back in sort of 10 minutes later or so, just so that I could reset the server. Basically to get time of day right for this tour. And that re-logging process is what somehow caused them to clip into the surface, which is a bit unfortunate. Got a little floor clean Hoover floor polishing thing down there underneath for a bit of extra clutter. We'll head up to the first floor. So start to see I've got a lot of junk fences, stuff like that around, just to kind of enclose this space, make it feel like you're not going to fall off. No fancy placement or foam for use or anything like that required to put these in. They just went in just fine on their own. A little bit of patience and careful positioning, but they go in no problem at all themselves. The thing with this prefab being so large, though, is you've got a fair bit of space that it's kind of difficult to figure out what to do with. Because once you've got the crafting stations in and somewhere to live and then a vendor room, you've kind of got everything you need. So after that, it was kind of, how do I dress up the rest of this? So you can see I've added all manner of different bits and pieces in around here. You can see I've got a solar panel on the corner there that connects to the prefab. And this does light up, but it doesn't provide very much power. Much like with the Wildwood Tavern we had a look at recently, the power really doesn't reach that far. So you're going to have to run extra conduits around the back or something if you want to power it up properly, which is what I did. So just our little weapons and armour room down here. Everything tucked in quite neatly, just enough room to move down the bit of carpet in the middle there on this remains of a tram. And the rest of the crafting stations are spread out elsewhere. Obviously there's the power armour downstairs, and got some more stuff upstairs. I quite like how that's come out. It's neat in a way, that little crafting space. But you can get through it all. It's got everything you need, or most of the stuff you need there anyway. The other stuff's all tucked in other places, but it's kind of a nice compact thing for focusing on weapons and armour there, so I quite like that space. I do like the cage lights that come attached to this prefab. They're quite nice and make it light up nicely. Put a couple of chain links up top here so you don't fall off the end of the prefab. Same with these little fences on the edges of the stairs there as well. So we can get up to the top area there, as you can see by the steps and the fencing at the top. That bit that sticks up does kind of mean you can't use it for anything, which is a bit unfortunate. So I've left that kind of clear and empty, but it looks alright. I boarded up that door over the other end, which took a fair bit of patience and precision to get those boards in, just because you can't really attach anything off of it, and you're just prone to walking through the door and falling straight off the prefab, so it felt like it needed boarding up. There aren't any doors that come with this prefab, unfortunately, so kind of have to make do with other ones and boarding gaps up and stuff. Because this particular tram car is full of broken windows, I figured it was a good place to put our chemistry benches and stuff. So all the fumes and stuff can still escape. As by the time I got up to using this space as well, I'd mostly finished. So decorating this was quite a challenge to figure out what to do with it. So I've gone heavily into the chem lab for this space. Brewing station down this end, chemistry station at the end. Actually fit in quite nicely at the end. There's a kind of curve to the end of these cars that fit that nice pharmaceutical chem station with all its moving robo-brain parts into the shape of the prefab really nicely, which I liked a lot. So that came out quite cool. So we'll sort of pan our way back over. I'm going to show you this place in the evening in a second, but this is one thing that does bug me. You can't just walk up the side of the prefab here, because it's quite steep. I figure they could probably have done something about that with the sort of behind-the-scenes pathing stuff, but having to jump it is mildly annoying. I know, it's a bit jarring. It feels like you should just be able to path straight over that. I know it doesn't look like it, but from a practical standpoint. But, yeah, it is what it is. A nice little view down from the top here through the chain link. As I say, I wanted to enclose this, partly to make it feel enclosed, partly so you don't fall off the darn thing. But, yeah, it came out quite nicely. A few little random bits and pieces, Pittsburgh barrels and stuff around. There's my punch card machine. Yeah, I quite like how this has come out. It's very scrappy. I did think about doing this with more heavy raider vibes. There's little bits of raideriness to it, but I still don't really have enough stuff to do a properly raider camp yet. At least not one that I'll be satisfied with. So I kind of went somewhere in the middle with this one. In a weirdly homely, colourful, welcoming camp, but with little spiky bits. But I do like how it's come out. As I say, the actual building part of it was just really putting the junk fences around, which is just dead easy to do. This mostly just place them up, reposition them until they all meet neatly and they're in interesting angles, and then it was decorate the living daylights out of it. So, not a particularly challenging build, but the decoration is obviously what makes the difference on this one. Out front here, figuring out what to do with this open space was a bit challenging. Obviously I've got the outhouse there and the shower tucked in next to it, but otherwise I had quite the open space. A few crops, a couple of brambles just to kind of fill up the space a little bit, and the little campfire as well to sit around. So a quick look around at the outside again, and then we'll take a look at this place in the evening, because I really do like how the lighting has come out on this. It's very, very nice. Keeps that colourful vibe, but quite nicely for the nighttime look as well. I did a load of little bits of pieces, as you see, for decoration on the outside, just to texture up the walls and make them a bit more three-dimensional, a bit more interesting, a bit more colourful, keeping in with the vibe of the rest of the camp as well. I really like using that bus as part of the camp, and I really wish we had buses and trucks and things like that in the build menu to place. In this case, this one is actually a spawn point for enemies, so beware if you want to build in this location. They will spawn in there, and your turret will shoot through the windows fine, but only just. And yeah, when I closed it off, I did find a bunch of rad rats spawned in there and started attacking it. So, here we go, nighttime. The ash sheep's colours at night are pretty spectacular sometimes, especially on a clear evening like this one, and it works really well with the rest of the colours on the camp, so quite happy about that. Let's have a swift swing around for the nighttime tour. Reasonably well illuminated, and tons of colour. We've got the oil lamps there, like putting out nice big orange glow, contrasting nicely with the icicle lights, the Christmas icicle lights that put a nice blue one out, neon glow. Which looks pretty cool, I think. So it's not too different in here, just because obviously it's an enclosed space and not a great deal of light bleeds through from the outside. A bit actually does, which is kind of cool and practical, but it doesn't change massively at night. It gets a bit warmer in the evening, I feel like. I'll tuck that icicle light in the corner there just to add a little bit of a different tone to the colour and give it that sort of really colourful vibe. We'll head over to the living space. I've put an extra light here on that sort of overhanging floor, the sort of ceiling track light there, just to illuminate the power armour station, so you can really see what you're doing if you want to modify your power armour while you're here. We'll head on inside. Kind of happy with the lighting in here, but I do think I should have put one more lamp just down at this far end just to illuminate the kitchen area, because Yasmin's kind of hanging out in the dark a little bit there, which is tad unfortunate. But otherwise, this is quite nice. So I love all the masses and masses of decoration I've piled into this space. Kind of brings it to life, makes it homely. Otherwise, the sort of metal walls of the shipping container are a bit overbearing, so I do quite like the combination there. It puts a lot of colour into it. There's bright reds on the walls, obviously, are pretty pronounced, so kind of leaning into the colour works quite well with that, I think. So I've gone much more down the neon blue with a couple of icicle lights above our heads here. And if we have a look at the weapons and armour room here, you can really see how the lighting looks if you don't do anything, because this is just the prefab powered, and it's a little bit of kind of warmish yellowy orange light, but not too much, so it works, it's fine. It's a little more dingy up top, actually, but it does do enough to illuminate it. Obviously, with this top one, I did feel like I needed a little bit of extra light, so I've got a couple of cage bulb lights on the ceiling up here that really gave it quite a bold colour, actually, but makes it that much more visible up here, and obviously there's lots of glowing bits and pieces around with the pumpkins and the chemistry station and stuff as well, so quite a nice cosy vibe up here, which is a bit contrasting with the smashed out windows, but it works. Looks pretty nice, I think. You see what you're doing when you're mixing your chems and so on. I have to hop up again. Still bugs me. A couple of fences around the edge here, because this corner is really quite tight to turn. So if you're not careful, you can easily fall off the prefab and land on the ground, which won't do any harm to you, obviously, at that height, but it's mildly annoying. Yeah, I'm quite happy with this. Little splashes of colour, little bits of lights like pumpkins and stuff around, just to add colour and light and illumination, just to get a really warm, homely vibe, which kind of gives it quite a welcoming vibe in the evening, I think. Looks quite cool. There you go, you see the icicle lights up top there as well. And the little hubcap flowers and stuff, as well as the new tree stump planters as well, all had little splashes of colour to it as well, and they dressed up quite nicely. So I don't normally use that fire barrel because it puts out blue light rather than orange, which makes no sense whatsoever and still bugs me after all this time. But right next to it is that oil lamp, which really makes a big difference and kind of hides that fact quite nicely. So feel like it looks better, though. There we go. Not too much lighting out front, just the campfire there, because you really don't need it out here, so why would you? There we go. One Pittsburgh Palace prefab. So I hope you folks did enjoy this one. If you did, please do check out all the buttons down below, like, sub, social media links, all that good stuff, merch store, notification bell. Do join us for live streams as well. We're, of course, jumping back into Fallout 76, finishing up Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, and moving on to some other cool stuff as well in the coming weeks, so I do hope you join us for those. But for now, thank you very much for watching. I look forward to speaking to you all very, very soon.